Now, this tweet really explains why Western comic books are failing and why I don't think they're going to be saved. And when I say failing, I mean objectively. You look at the sales, manga is dominating Western comics. And if you can't sell a product, it means people aren't interested. They don't want to buy it. They just don't care. You know what's even worse than hating something is ignoring something. And this is what a lot of companies dread. You can still sell your product if it's nefarious, if people hate it, like pineapple on pizza, it still sells, but you cannot sell something that people aren't interested in, they find boring. So, EthanVanSciver, I don't care if you guys like him or not, but he was in the industry, still is, but like he was in DC. He wrote a lot of good comics, and he understands the business. And he says that in order to save comics, he would like to see 5 things happening. Number 1, tighter editorial standards in hiring and creative talent. Number 2, a renewed effort towards protecting the integrities of the IP. Number 3 is gatekeeping toxic ideologues. Because ideologues, they destroy a business. They don't come into a company with the purpose of making the company more profitable, with the purpose of making people happy with the purchase that they have. They come into the company with the sole purpose of spreading their ideology and promoting their friends. That's it. That's all the thing that they care about. And you can see the malice that they have towards the consumer. You can see the hatred that they have towards people who disagree with them on social media. They are fundamental at destroying an intellectual property. So you have to gatekeep against them. If someone isn't interested in making comic books and they just want to come to your company in order to push a political message, you should gatekeep them. You shouldn't allow them to come in. Number 4, nonpartisan message. Like, you shouldn't have an actual Democrat come into your show because you're alienating the people who aren't Democrats, right? And you shouldn't have a Republican either because you're alienating the people who aren't Republicans. It's not rocket science. Like, you want to reach the biggest audience, so you should try to avoid things like religion, politics, sports, if possible. I mean, I remember back in the day when DC actually tackled the political question. They had an election, and various superheroes said whether or not they want to vote Republican or Democrat. But, like, you didn't get the idea that Democrats are good people and Republicans are bad people. It was just treated as a nonpartisan way. Like, yeah, sure, there's election, and some people that are superheroes happen to be right-wingers, and some people happen to be left-wingers, and it was fine. Another example, which in my opinion is a political comic which is treated very, very well, is the Civil War, the first Civil War at Marvel. Like, you had the government wanting to remove the secret identity of the superhero, so they wanted to take their right away to remain anonymous. And this is because of 9/11. Like, the government wanted to be more intrusive into the lives of the people in exchange for safety. And what did the superheroes do? Well, you have Tony Stark, who was the corporate man, and he is with the government. He wants to help the government remove the secret identity of superheroes. And then you have Captain America, which is against that. He is the common man. He's fighting for the rights of the people. And it's up to the reader to decide who is right and who is wrong. You don't get a political message stuffed down your throat. You don't get to feel like, oh, well, Captain America is the villain or Tony Stark is the villain. Like, depending on which side of the political spectrum you're at, you could have just rooted for one of your superheroes and hope that they are the ones winning the Civil War. Right? So that is what a nonpartisan message looks like. Another example would be the X-Men. Like, the X-Men is a reference to the civil rights struggle in the United States. But it's done in a proper way. It's done in a nonpartisan way. So this gets more readers, gets more people invested. Partisan messaging alienates people. I mean, if you were to have like a right-wing comic, I'm pretty sure like left-wingers wouldn't want to read it. Focus on exciting and escapist fun. Alright, so this is what EthanVanSciver desires from the comic book industry. And unfortunately, Albert Wesker here, with a very underrated post, only 3 likes, is demolishing EthanVanSciver with a heavy dose of reality. Number 1, you will not get editorial standards because climate of fear from cancel culture. So this is absolutely correct. What does this mean? Well, imagine you're an editor at a comic book company, and you have this guy coming in, and he wants to pitch a story. And he says, all right, let's make Batman travel through time, and he's now during the prehistoric era. And the editor goes like, nah, I don't think that will sell, because we already did it. All right, well, let's have Batman in a cyberpunk city. Now, we can't have that, because we already did it. Okay, let's have Batman become gay. And now the editor is like, oh, fucking hell. Holy shit. Now, even though it's overdone, even though you know it doesn't sell, he has to do it. He has to do it, because if he doesn't do it, he's going to be accused of being homophobic. And that's not it. Like, you can have a really bad writer which tanks a comic book, and then you can't fire them, because if you fire them, and they happen to be one of the protected identities by the left, oh, then you're Islamophobic, sexist, racist. So as an editor, you're chained, you're shackled by identity politics. Number 3, you can't gatekeep ideologues because the people doing the hiring are ideologues. You know, they complained about, oh my god, there's so many men CEO, like straight, white, cisgender, male CEO in positions of power. I don't think the CEO is the most important person in a company. I mean, technically he is, right? Like, technically he can say, all right, well, we at Facebook will now have free speech, and we're not going to censor anything. If he does that, he's going to have people walking out. He's going to have protests inside this company. He's going to be sabotaged from within his company, and it's going to be a disaster. Now, technically, yes, like a CEO can fix this problem, but it's very, very difficult. Because the people who actually have power in a company are the people who do the hiring. Just like Lenin found out when Stalin took over. The people who do the hiring can shape company policy. I mean, think about it this way. If you were to have Marvel right now, and you're in control of their HR, and you have like an HR at Marvel filled with like-minded people who are, let's say, radical Christians, like incredibly convinced and devout evangelicals. And they only do hiring, promotion, and firing with that lens in mind. In 1 or 2 years, you're going to see a completely different Marvel. The stories that will appear are going to be completely different. The activism is going to be completely different. Why? Because the people doing the hiring have actually the power to shape corporate culture. In fact, it's the HR people that constantly take their employees to various retreats and waste their time lecturing them about some leftist bullshit like white fragility or other nonsense, you know, treating employees as if they're children and constantly indoctrinating them with things where they can't disagree with. There is no dialogue. You're just told, like, this is the correct way of thinking, and if you don't think like this, then you're not part of our company. And they're the ones that set corporate culture. So, yeah, like gatekeeping people, it's like, no, you can't. You can't gatekeep because they're the ones gatekeeping. Like, if you're EthanVanSciver, you're being gatekept. Like, the reason he's not working at DC anymore is because he was gatekept. He wasn't left-wing. Like, he had some edgy takes on Twitter, on social media, and he got gatekept by the HR. Number 4 and number 5 go hand in hand. Non-partisan messaging and focus on exciting fun. It can't happen because social media has broken a generation of writers. Like, writers care more about social media than they care about sales. And it's not just writers. Unfortunately, it's politicians. You can look at the UK experiment. So in the United Kingdom, you had left-wingers that legitimately thought they're going to win elections, and they were going even more to the left. I mean, it ended up with a little red book by one of the leaders of the leftist party, by Corbyn, and they went Pikachu face when they noticed that it was actually a conservative wave that won. Why? Because they lived on fucking Twitter. Like, they would get that information from Twitter. They would say the things that people on Twitter say. And then when they went into the real world, they realized, oh shit, the working class is already banned from Twitter and they're voting. They're banned from Twitter for TOS abuse. But apparently, they're not banned from the voting booth, unfortunately. And they went and voted, and all of a sudden, it was like this massive blue wave in the UK. Blue was conservative. So it's the same with comic books, and it's the same with writers. Like, they look at Twitter, they think that Twitter is representative of the market. Notice how, like, the Japanese people who write manga, sure, they may be on Twitter, but, like, they don't interact with the Western audience. And because they don't interact with the Western audience, because there's that degree of separation, they can actually make good manga, which sells and makes money, which is a good thing. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.